What is up, YouTube? What is going on, fellow fantasy people? And as always, what is up, the catch fam? You already know time is, man. We are rolling into another mock draft. I've got a 12-man league with the ninth overall selection and PPR scoring format out of Yahoo's platform going on. I'm going to keep announcing this in every video. I am at the beach this week, so obviously my setup looks completely different. I'm going to be wearing beach bum shirts all week. I did bring my guy Baker Mayfield with me, so we are feeling dangerous. Don't really have a way to display him at the moment, but we'll get that figured out throughout the week. I just want to put that out there for any new viewers. This is not how we usually are rolling here at the catch, but nonetheless, gotta bring some great quality content mock drafts, as a lot of people are either conducting their mock drafts this week, or they did this past weekend, or they are getting ready, not mock drafts, excuse me, actual drafts this past week or slash weekend, right? Or they're preparing to have their actual fantasy draft this coming weekend or next week before the season starts. So we want to be pumping out these mock drafts left and right, man. And nonetheless, if you guys do find this video enjoyable or helpful in any way, go and smash that like button. We are on the road to 100 subscribers here at the catch, and you can make our dreams come reality. Who knows, maybe I will go ahead and auction off Baker Mayfield here for whoever a 100th subscriber is. Don't know yet. Maybe we'll see and do some cool giveaways, but nonetheless, go ahead and drop some comments down below with what type of mock drafts you guys need to see for your personal fantasy league. Excuse me. Let's get right into it. As we see Dalvin Cook selected first overall with this 9th overall selection. Here's another note is I am playing in a 12-man league this year, and I do need to kind of start preparing realistically for how I want to draft in that league. So I'm probably going to be going pretty RB heavy in this mock draft, as that is typically what I do in real life. I've been playing around with the idea of going out and getting like a Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes early, but I just don't know if I can revert out of the RB heavy strategy. It's just what I've always done. It's how I think I build my best teams. It's how I think I perform the best throughout the regular season with having that roster already in place. But we'll see what happens. You never know. Maybe if we get enough likes or enough subscribers by the time I do my actual draft and live stream it, I'll sway away from the RB heavy strategy. You guys let me know what you want to see in the comments down below. But nonetheless, let's keep on anticipating this 9th overall selection. My top target here is definitely going to be that of Aaron Jones. If he does get selected, then I would Najee Harris gets selected 8th overall, who's someone who I wanted to target with that 16th overall selection. But I don't have a problem with going out and getting Najee Harris in the top 10. I won't be surprised if he keeps creeping up with his ADP, right? I'm actually a little surprised that he hasn't cracked the top 10. I think he's going to have a fantastic year, man. I think he's going to be offensive rookie of the year. I mean, there's a lot of good quarterbacks coming into the season this year who tend to overpower the running back position. So in terms of offensive rookie of the year selection, so we'll see, right? But I think that he could certainly be one of the best fantasy players at the rookie position, or who is a rookie. You guys know what I'm trying to say. So nonetheless, let's keep selecting here. A lot of good receivers sitting here, a lot of running backs that we like as well. I'm going to go ahead and add Antonio Gibson, someone who I think is being a little bit undervalued overall. I mean, look at where he's projected: over 1,200 rushing yards, around 11 scores, and maybe a receiving touchdown, and some pretty good receiving yards numbers. So nonetheless, we went out and we got two running backs who were pretty actually very confident in, not pretty confident in. And we feel pretty good overall with the start of this draft. Let's go ahead and see where we are selecting next. We have the 33rd overall selection and the 40th overall selection. So we should be able to add another running back of value there. Hopefully a guy like David Montgomery or James Robinson is sitting there. We're going to be right on the line, and if they are, then we will turn around and get another receiver, and then probably start to look, at least start evaluating the quarterback and tight end position. But nonetheless, still going to be looking at the running back position throughout this entire draft. We would like to select a running back every other round at least. I mean, That's just how I like to do my personal fantasy drafts. Like I said, I think that's how I end up with the best overall roster. But nonetheless, let's just evaluate what we've got going on here. So in the second round, we've got DK Metcalf, Austin Eckler, Saquon Barkley. Then my selection of Antonio Gibson, followed by Joe Mixon. Then we see our first quarterback taken 18th overall, and that of Patrick Mahomes, followed by a little bit of a run on receivers here: Diggs, Hopkins, Ridley, and Justin Jefferson. So don't be surprised if you guys are seeing Patrick Mahomes selected anywhere from pick 12 to pick 30. I mean, it's if this is the guy that you want to target in your draft, you have to be very strategic about it because there's just no telling when he's going to be selected. And we've gotten comments that some people already know that in their drafts that quarterbacks go a little bit earlier than what you see in these mock drafts, right? And even in the main league that Steven and I play in, year after year, I feel like quarterbacks go pretty early. We have some people that like to go out and secure a quarterback early. So I'm not going to be surprised if we're seeing Patrick Mahomes taken very early, and a lot of people aren't anticipating that. They're just going off of what they see in these mock drafts. But keep in mind that things get crazy when it comes time to draft, and you will probably see a little bit different of a setup than what you see in these mock drafts. These are a pretty good overall view, but nonetheless, you never know what's going to happen as we see Russell Wilson taken here in the third round at the 26th overall selection, as well as A.J. Brown at pick 25, and C.E.H. Clyde-Edwards-Helaire taken 27th overall, followed by that of Keenan Allen. So we've still got both David Montgomery and James Robinson sitting here. That selection of Russell Wilson has helped us out a little bit. 4 more selections until we pick. It'd be nice if we could get a little run at the quarterback position here to give us some leverage. There goes George Kittle, so maybe some tight ends will go here, which would also help us out. But nonetheless, we want to go out and secure either David Montgomery or James Robinson, and then go out and get a wide receiver one, like a Mike Evans. Cooper Kupp sitting here. I don't believe Terry McLaurin or CeeDee Lamb are going to be available when we select. But some other guys, Amari Cooper, Robert Woods, Tyler Lockett, all sitting there. So I'm happy with any of those guys, as well as Chris Godwin being my wide receiver one. We did just drop, all of our wide receiver rankings 1 through 24, 2 separate videos, right? So go check those out to see where both Steven and I kind of stand on these specific receivers and how some of them, we value as wide receiver ones, even though they're going to be a little bit lower in the ADP overall. So this is the first time I've had either the selection of David Montgomery or James Robinson available, and I value both of these guys in very similar fashion, right? I'm going to go ahead and add James Robinson, which is probably going to surprise a lot of you guys because I've been so high on David Montgomery, and I still am. And I really think either selection there, James Robinson or David Montgomery, presents very similar value. Do I think David Montgomery will fall to us at the 40th overall selection? No. But if he did, then I would absolutely take him and revert away from the receivers for just a little bit longer. But I don't think he's going to slide to us. But now we only have 3 more selections, as we've seen. Now 2 more. Chris Carson, Cooper Kupp, Chris Godwin, Miles Sanders all off the board. And then now David Montgomery and Josh Allen both sitting here. Those are 2 very good players, very good values from where we're selecting. There goes Amari Cooper. If David Montgomery slides here, that's just crazy. I wouldn't anticipate that happening in a real draft, but I will pick him because you guys know that I just can't pass up a guy that I like that much. And then, we're going to have some holes to fill at the receiver as well as tight end and quarterback positions. But I won't be surprised if in my actual draft I go out and get 4 running backs in a row. And there goes Josh Allen, man, which I think is a good selection here. But let's just see what happens if we go super RB heavy. And we go wide receiver 0, QB 0, tight end 0. Now, we need to turn around and fill those holes at those positions, right? So, but nonetheless, we started off this roster absolutely loaded in my personal opinion at the running back position. Obviously, Aaron Jones, Antonio Gibson, James Robinson, and David Montgomery. So Kind of the negative here is that we have a glaring hole across the rest of our roster, but the positive is that we don't really have to worry about the running back position until much, much later. I think that these four guys are good enough that we don't need an extreme amount of depth, especially with the potential of a running back showing up on the waiver wire throughout the regular season. I mean, we usually don't get as many running backs as we do wide receivers throughout the regular season on the waiver wire, but certainly due to injuries, there's going to be some opportunities there as well. But nonetheless, we need to start looking at the wide receiver position, and we need to have a queue going because we're going to have a lot of tough decisions to make. But look at these guys that I'm queuing up. There's so much depth, and we haven't even broken into the next tier. A lot of good running backs that I like here, but we have to stay away from the running back position. A lot of good tight ends are still available here. I mean, really, part of that second tier is all intact here with Kyle Pitts and Mark Andrews and Hawkinson available. And you guys know that I like this next tier overall, the third tier kind of. So keep in mind some recent news. Irv Smith Jr. is going to be dealing with a chest injury. If I'm not mistaken, it's chest injury, and he will need some surgery, and he's going to miss most of September. And I mean, that's really all we know at the moment. So, if Irv Smith Jr. was a part of your mock, or not, well, mock draft strategy, sure, but your regular draft strategy, he's probably not at the moment, and I'm kind of surprised. I mean, he's not expected to miss an extreme amount of time. Probably, what I've seen is he's going to miss the month of September. So, it looks like he hasn't really dropped that low, at least through Yahoo. So I don't know. He was never part of any of my strategies, really. We just haven't really seen him play a full season, so a little bit of a gamble, in my opinion. But nonetheless, could have definitely paid off. He did look pretty good when he was playing in the preseason. Did look like Kirk Cousins was targeting him quite a bit. But nonetheless, let's go ahead and just monitor what's going on. After my selection of David Montgomery, we've seen Josh Jacobs, Gus Edwards, Tyler Lockett, Mike Davis, Robert Woods, DeAndre Swift, and Damian Harris all off the board. So, I mean, it would be amazing if a guy like DJ Moore could fall to us, but we could always make Robbie Anderson part of our overall strategy here. There's a lot of good tight ends still sitting here that might present some good value, but nonetheless, we still have 8 more picks until we select, and a lot of good value is going to be wiped off the board within those 8 selections. I mean, we'd be really happy with Brandon Ayuk, excuse me, Julio Jones, Adam Thielen, Deontay Johnson. I mean, we'd be happy with adding any of these guys as our wide receiver one. That's one thing that Steve and I talked about a lot in those wide receiver rankings videos is that if you do go RB heavy, or if you go, RB, QB, tight end, any combination of those positions early on, and you need some wide receivers, you can essentially still get wide receiver one value at this point in the draft out of a lot of these guys, right? I mean, Julio Jones, Brandon Ayuk, T. Higgins, Deontay Johnson, Jerry Jeudy, Robbie Anderson, even, and Chase Claypool. Listen, they're not going to be a Tyreek Hill or Devontae Adams or Calvin Ridley or Justin Jefferson or any of those guys that you're getting early on, but they're still going to perform well enough if your running backs are popping off and you have 3 solid running backs out there every week. If you have an extra flex position or roster spot, and you can put out 4 stud running backs every week, and then you go out and get a pretty valuable tight end quarterback, you don't need to stress about the wide receiver position. And it is so deep overall that I'm telling you guys, just don't stress about it. Really, truly do not stress. And there is more and more depth at the wide receiver position than there is at any position in fantasy football, and more wide receivers show up on the waiver wire week in and week out than any other position that is at wide receiver. So let's go ahead and let's add my co-host's favorite player on the year, Brandon Ayuk, at the wide receiver position as our wide receiver one. Then we will see what tight ends are available. I mean, if Andrews or Hawkinson are sitting here at pick 64, I would definitely consider them. But if they're not, then we're going to go out and get my guy Jerry Jeudy, who I am as excited about as Steven is as Brandon Ayuk, and that would just be a shout out to the catch overall with this mock draft. But nonetheless, I mean, we've got some good quarterbacks in here: Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert, Tom Brady, A-Rod, and everyone else listed down below. As we see Odell Beckham off the board. There goes Mark Andrews. And I don't think that TJ Hawkinson is going to fall to us. So I think really for this roster, as much as I just talked about how deep the wide receiver position is and how there's no reason to worry about it, I do think the best move here is to go out and add another wide receiver, whether it's T. Higgins, Chase Claypool, Jerry Jeudy, or Robbie Anderson. I think that's going to add the best value to this roster at the moment. There goes TJ Hawkinson. So I'm still confident that we're going to be able to go out and get a good quarterback as well as a good tight end. And for the purpose of this mock draft, I might hold off at tight end for quite some time to see who we can end up with towards the end. There goes Ronald Jones, the second, someone who I was going to be targeting this mock draft in later rounds, who I would no longer be targeting. But nonetheless, I mean, we've got some really good players here. T. Higgins sitting here, man, projected 9 receiving touchdowns. We've got Claypool, Jerry Jeudy, as well as Robbie Anderson. I mean, we just talked about this a second ago, how some of these guys are going to give you wide receiver one value. Jerry Jeudy, and these are just projections. Projections are typically not the best thing to go off of, right? But Jerry Jeudy just got selected, projected 1,200 receiving yards and just under 8 touchdowns. Robbie Anderson projected around 1,200 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns. Chase Claypool projected 10 receiving touchdowns and 1,000 receiving yards. And we just talked about T. Higgins being projected about 9 touchdowns and 1,000 receiving yards. So I view all of these guys in very similar fashion, but I'm going to go out and I'm going to add Chase Claypool because I think he kind of gives us that explosive firepower. I think we're going to be able to add another receiver to this roster who, we can feel confident in playing week in and week out. But Chase Claypool, certainly an excellent flex player, an excellent wide receiver too to have on your roster overall. I do worry a little bit about some of the injuries, and I do worry about, Chase Claypool scored a lot of his fantasy points in specific weeks last year. We saw some weeks where he had lower numbers overall, but nonetheless, I think he adds some great value to this roster, and I'm happy to make him our selection there. So let's just continue evaluating things, and then we're going to need to kind of look at the quarterback position. That whole tier of guys is still sitting there. I think that we can still get some pretty good quarterback overall. I like to target that of either Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers. Now Robert Tonyan selected, so the tight ends are going to be getting thinner and thinner. I know I just said that we wanted to hold off at the tight end position. I think we can get Mike Gesicki, that is, pretty late in this draft, and there's going to be a lot of questionable tight ends that you could possibly go out and get at the end of your draft, like a Jared Cook, a Blake Jarwin, or an Anthony Firkser. If I still don't know if I'm saying his name right, but Ryan Tannehill has shown that he likes to throw to the tight end. We saw the departure of Johnny Smith out of that offense this last year, so I think that our guy Anthony Firkser is a. I just laugh every time I say his name because I think I'm butchering it, right? But I think he has some potential to be a really good sleeper, especially in deeper leagues. Someone that I'm certainly going to be looking at in my 20-man league, as it is a bit harder to get a good tight end in a 20-man league unless you go out and get one early. So. Nonetheless, after my selection of Chase Claypool, we've seen Logan Thomas and Robert Tonyan taken, followed by Kareem Hunt, Raheem Mostert, Trey Sermon, Javonte Williams, Chase Edmonds, and Melvin Gordon III. A huge overall run on running backs to end the 6th round. And now in the 7th round, we see that of Justin Herbert. So let's go ahead and take a look at the running back position as Antonio Brown is taken off the board and Jamar Chase. And let's see who's available. Yeah, these running backs dried out quickly, man. If there's someone I'd like to add to this roster, probably be that of Naheem Hines or maybe even Philip Lindsay, is someone I'm starting to kind of consider, but not really. Right. So Michael Carter sitting here, probably the next best value. But Michael Carter is someone who a lot of people were higher on earlier in the offseason / preseason, as we see both Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady off the board, who has now kind of fallen back a little bit in average draft projections, as we know that he is going to be splitting carries in that backfield. So and I mean, it's the Jets. I mean, they've looked okay in preseason. Zach Wilson has shown some stride, and Corey Davis has looked very good overall. Someone who I think is going to be a great, wide receiver to target in later rounds. But nonetheless, 2 selections until we pick, and T. Higgins and Robbie Anderson are both sitting here. Tyler Boyd was just selected, so I'm picking Robbie Anderson with this next selection. I just can't pass up that value. Or T. Higgins, right? I mean, I have a feeling he's going to get selected here, considering that we have an auto drafter at pick 80 here. But Either of these guys, I think, give you tremendous value. But Robbie Anderson, I think, a little bit more stable play at the quarterback position. Do I think Sam Darnold is a better quarterback than Joe Burrow? Probably not. But Joe Burrow, a little banged up still at the moment, right? And there goes Jalen Hurts hurting our quarterback selections, right? But nonetheless, Robbie Anderson, I think a little bit more stable from who's throwing him the ball. And the strength of schedule for the Carolina Panthers wide receivers is absurd. They need to be on your draft board, man. I am telling you now, they have such an easy strength of schedule. It's not even funny. So, nonetheless, 5 more selections until we pick. I'm telling you, man, Ryan Tannehill is my top target here. I think he's going to add very good value to this roster. And let's talk about this roster real quick, right? I mean, I think we have, let's see, one, two, three, four absolute stud running backs, and I think we got 3 very good receivers. So I feel pretty good about this roster overall. And I kind of diverted away from really any strategy other than going running back heavy. I've kind of just been taking the most valuable players as Ryan Tannehill is selected, and we've seen some tight ends that we really like selected as well. But nonetheless, we have to go out and target that of Matthew Stafford here. I think there is a significant drop off at the quarterback position after Matt Stafford is taken. And you look at a lot of these numbers from guys like Matt Ryan as well as Kirk Cousins. You could kind of throw Ben Roethlisberger into that conversation as well. And they actually have pretty similar stats last year in comparison to that of Matthew Stafford. But I do think that we're going to see a rejuvenated Matthew Stafford under that Rams offense and under head coach Sean McVay. So if he got selected here, then we would just go out and see who's available and select the best talent available, regardless of position. Maybe a tight end that we want to go out and secure. But let's go ahead and let's add Matthew Staff Infection, as my co-host Steven's dad likes to call him, and let's add him to this roster. And now at this point, we need to start queuing up some players and figuring out who we want to add to this roster. Noah Fant sitting here, not someone I'm completely sold on still, but he has a very easy strength of schedule. A lot of good receivers available. Like I said, I think we can hold off at the tight end position, but we do need to, at this point, start considering it. We've got a lot of receivers that we really, really like. So, granted that we went so RB heavy and then we went out and targeted a lot of receivers, we're probably not going to get another running back of any value unless we go out and target a guy like a Naheem Hines, right? Other than that, I mean, we've got JD McKissick sitting there. James White, I think, is an interesting fantasy selection because really, James White and Tom Brady had an amazing chemistry that made James White such a valuable PPR weapon, someone that I loved to go out and target that you could always get in later rounds from a PPR standpoint, right? But we just haven't seen the same since Tom Brady left. I don't think it's a knock on James White as a player whatsoever, right? But nonetheless, I still think that we could see him return to at least half of what he did in previous years, which is kind of where they've got him projected, right? But nonetheless, just not completely confident going out and getting him, right? Kenyon Drake is someone who I think would be some good value to this roster with those 10 rushing touchdowns last year, even with our guy Josh Jacobs in that backfield. But at this point in the draft, I don't think it would hurt to add a guy like Kenyon Drake, but we've got Michael Gallup sitting here, man, a great steal at the wide receiver position. We've got Devontae Smith and we've got Corey Davis, man. So a lot of good receivers sitting here once again. We'll see what happens, man. Right? I mean, we'll see what happens, and nonetheless, we're going to have some auto drafters. So I think that we have a good opportunity in front of us. Okay, so we've seen both Michael Gallup and Dallas Goedert off the board. Certainly, 2 very good values that we would have liked to add to this roster, but nonetheless, our top targets here: Devontae Smith and Corey Davis. I'm a little bit more confident overall in Corey Davis at the moment. No knock on Devontae Smith, but I also think that Corey Davis is a little bit of a hotter name, and Devontae Smith has a better chance of falling to us with that 112th overall selection. The other option here would be to go out and secure our tight end and that of Mike Gesicki, because I really think he's the last elite tight end, so to speak, available. But we might have an opportunity to see him slide into the next round and still be able to pick up another very valuable receiver in that. Oh, never mind. Devontae Smith. All right. Yeah, Devontae Smith just got selected. So he's not going to be on this team, but Kenyon Drake is sitting here. Mike Williams, I still think, as well as Will Fuller and DJ Chark. So I think we feel pretty good at the wide receiver position with that selection of Corey Davis added to Ayuk, Claypool, and Robbie Anderson, right? Feel very good at the running back position. I do kind of want to add another quarterback to this roster, probably a rookie guy in a later round, but nonetheless, I feel like the best move here is to secure Kenyon Drake outside of those two PPR values and Naheem Hines and JD McKissick that we already talked about. I really think this is the only running back available who's worth selecting, unless you want to go full handcuff and get a guy like Tony Pollard, right, who's sitting here, Alexander Madison, and just wait around for Dalvin Cook or Zeke to get injured. But I don't really like to do that. It typically, to me, feels like a waste of a draft pick. It's a gamble, could pay off, right, but I don't like counting on injuries by any means. So a lot of good players sitting here. Will Fuller's available. DJ Chark's available. We've got Chenault Jr. sitting here. We've got Joe Burrow, who I talked about still being a little bit banged up, but nonetheless, I do look for Joe Burrow to come out and play very well this season when he is healthy. And I think he'll be ready to go week one. But it's just something to keep in mind. I mean, he's come out himself and said that he's, still battling that injury, so to speak. But he's a tremendous player and he's going to have a great year. But nonetheless, Marquise Callaway of the New Orleans Saints is my top freaking target at, the sleeper position, not a position, sleeper roster spot, whatever you want to call it. That's a guy I want on my team right now. And I think if you're drafting soon, he should be on your draft boards, and if you're not, he's probably going to be shooting up in his ADP. But nonetheless, Mike Gesicki taken off the board. Like I said, with that last selection of Kenyon Drake, kind of the other option was to go ahead and secure a tight end. So we're going to be looking pretty weak at the tight end position, but I think this is a good practice, right? That's what these mock drafts are for. Kind of playing around, putting yourself in uncomfortable positions and trying different things, right? So we know we're not going to target that of Irv Smith Jr., right? Gerald Everett is someone I like, but I think he could have a breakout year in that Seahawks offense, right? But I'm just not sure. Evan Ingram, I still think, isn't going to provide you a great value at tight end. Not going to necessarily be a guy who's going to put up a lot of touchdowns this year. But from a PPR standpoint, I do believe Evan Ingram is going to have a good year. So someone I would consider here as well. And then my guy, Rob Gronkowski, is sitting here as well as Jared Cook. So I still think there's a lot of good tight ends who present similar value. And Blake Jarwin and my guy, Anthony Firkser, who I'm just going to butcher his name every time I try to say it, is sitting there too. So I think there's actually some pretty good tight end value that we can hold off at the tight end position and go ahead and add some pretty good values to this roster. So nonetheless, I mean, Mike Williams is sitting here. Our turn is next. I just can't pass up that talent, right? Let's go and scoot my face over and let's see Irv Smith Jr. taken off the board. How many more players can I select? Just two. And there are two wide receivers that I want. And that of Mike Williams and Marquise Callaway. So we're probably only going to end up with one tight end. So we went pretty receiver heavy overall, but I don't think it's a bad thing with having guys like Ayuk and Claypool available or on our roster, and then Anderson, Corey Davis, and Mike Williams. It might not actually make any sense for us to go out and target Marquise Callaway at the moment. So I'm going to scoot my face to the bottom. And let's see, and we can just kind of monitor things right here. So at this point at the quarterback position, I mean, there's a couple guys. I like Trey Lance. I like Justin Fields. I like Tua. We're kind of going with the sleeper method. I mean, my guy, Mac Jones, right? I mean, I think Cam Newton's going to start the year, but I'm going to be I don't know, man. I just got a feeling about our guy, Big Mac, Mac and Cheese, coming out and playing really well this season if he does get a shot at the QB1 position. So Storm and Norman just took Gerald Everett off the board. And man, do these tight ends look really, really thin. Let's just do it. Let's add Gronk to this roster. I mean, 623 receiving yards and 7 touchdowns last year. Not the best overall value because just from a consistent week to week basis, he's not going to give you the best numbers, but I think when you look at the rest of this roster, he will fill in nicely. We can still go out and target another tight end. And keep in mind, I mean, you can always look to the tight end position early on in the waiver wire. You're going to get a lot more clarity on guys like Jared Cook, Blake Jarwin, our guy Anthony Firkser. um, dude, Pat F, someone I have not been talking about a lot lately, who I was talking about a lot, he is going to have a good year, man. This is like the guy I'm placing all my bets on in fantasy football. I think Big Ben is really going to be targeting this guy a lot. No knock on Eric Ebron, who he also has, but I'm not going to be surprised. I mean, we saw some crazy things in preseason with my guy, Pat F, Big Pat F, man. So, nonetheless, Evan Ingram's still sitting here. If he slides, I think he'd be a pretty good value to add to this roster. Marquise Callaway is sitting here. If this was my actual draft, I would be forfeiting a kicker at this point because I just see so much value in a lot of these guys. I mean, Michael Thomas is still sitting here, who's really dropped in a lot of ADPs. Just a shaky situation with Michael Thomas. We know what he can do when he's fully healthy, right? And he just got selected, right? But you're taking a little bit of a gamble. And our guy Spanky went out and got a lot of guys that we. Oh, you got Marquise Brown, Evan Ingram. I thought that was Marquise Callaway for a second, but it wasn't. And then we've seen he also took Evan Ingram. Then we've seen Hunter Henry, Michael Thomas, big Ryan Fitzmagic off the board, and McCole Hardman as well. And there goes Trey Lance. So. If Marquise Callaway gets selected here, I mean, we do have two more selections until we pick, then we'd probably turn around and get a guy like a Justin Fields just to add that depth at the at the quarterback position. We could go out and target another tight end like Jared Cook. We could add another running back handcuff situation, right? A lot of things we could do as we see Jacoby Myers off the board. Jacoby Myers, another wide receiver who, I think I've been pretty wrong. I have put it out there at the wide receiver position for the Patriots. I don't think Nelson Aguilar is going to provide that wide receiver one value anymore overall. I think Jacoby Myers is probably the guy in that offense, but nonetheless, let's take the guy in the Saints offense. Why not? Let's take Marquise Callaway. And we can basically know whoever does not perform at the wide receiver running back position on this bench, we can drop early on. We can add a quarterback if we need to. We can add a tight end if we need to. Like I said, we're going to get some more clarity on how some of these kind of middle tier quarterbacks are performing. By the end of September, whether it be Ben Roethlisberger, my guy Tua, Jameis Winston, right, Teddy Bridgewater, and then some of these other rookies, right, like Zach Wilson, he's going to start week one. I mean, Mac Jones might be sprinkled in there. Cam Newton, Derek Carr is sitting here. I mean, Sam Darnold. I mean, some of these guys are going to step up this year and be fantasy relevant. We see it happen every year. But nonetheless, let's just make this a true and well to that same point, right? I mean, we're going to get more clarity on guys like Jared Cook, Blake Jarwin, my guy Anthony F. Is probably what I should just start calling him, like I'm calling Pat F. Just Pat F. Right? Pat F, I kind of want to draft him, right? That's my guy. But nonetheless, let's go ahead and just add a defense. Let's pick up the Kansas City Chiefs defense, even though we do have the Colts sitting here. We've got New England and Miami sitting here. And nonetheless, we're going to wait 16 more selections for a kicker, but I'm not going to make you guys sit through that. Let's go ahead and crack down this roster, man. Okay, so we went very RB heavy early on with this roster. We went on, got Aaron Jones as well as Antonio Gibson, two very solid running backs to start your draft with. But then we followed it up with James Robinson. Then we had that really nice slide to where we were able to select David Montgomery as well. So you guys know that I'm super happy about being able to go out and add both those running backs to this roster, very confident in their ability. And then we took a late round kind of handcuff situation, which kind of hurt us at the tight end position. But nonetheless, we have Kenyon Drake to add some depth. Probably would have been a little bit better overall for this roster if we just took Mike Gesicki there and then maybe reverted back to a PPR guy like Naheem Hines or JD McKissick. But that's what these mock drafts are for. They are here to learn from mistakes, or maybe not mistakes, but just how things kind of shape out within your strategy, right? At the receiver position, we got a lot of good players, in my opinion. We turned out pretty wide receiver heavy, a little bit heavier than I thought we would, right? But we got Brandon Ayuk, Chase Claypool, and then we've got Robbie Anderson, Corey Davis, Mike Williams, and Marquise Callaway. I think we got some steals at their wide receiver position. Let's go ahead and we have two more selections until we select. But my turn is next. Let's go ahead and take a pause from the roster breakdown and let's see what kicker we end up with. I know you guys are just dying and anticipation. I mean, let's just take Michael Badgley of the Chargers. You're going to put up a lot of points this season, right? So nonetheless, that completes the roster. But yeah, at the wide receiver position, I think we got a lot of good late round value to add a lot of good depth at the wide receiver position. Granted that I like our first two selections, but they're not extremely elite guys. But I think we're going to have two very good receivers week in and week out, and still the ability to flex two very good running backs. But nonetheless, at the quarterback position, we ended up with Matthew Stafford, and at the tight end position, we ended up with our guy Gronk. So a little bit thinner at the QB tight end position. Couple question marks you could debate at the wide receiver position, I guess. And then we don't have a tremendous amount of depth at the running back position on the bench, but we don't need it, man. We have four RB1s who are rocking and ready to go, man. So nonetheless, we end up with Kansas City's defense and Michael Badgley at the kicker position. So like I said, we went RB heavy, which is what I do in my personal drafts. We kind of played around. We took some top values. We stayed away a little bit at the quarterback and tight end position, which maybe we didn't really need to when you look at some of the receivers that we got in later rounds. But nonetheless, we ended up with a roster that I am happy with. And as always, this was a complete blast. If you guys enjoyed this, go ahead and smash that like button if you found this helpful. Go ahead and smash the like button while you're thinking about it. Why not just hit the like button? It truly helps us out, gives us that little boost in the algorithm, and we are on the road to 100 subscribers here at The Catch, and you can help our dreams come true. If we got 100 subscribers, we'd be the happiest people in the world, my co-host Steven and I. And like I said, maybe we will auction off my Baker Mayfield Funko Pop. Haven't really decided. We'll think about it when we get closer to 100 subs. Go ahead and drop some comments down below with what you guys need to see before you conduct your personal draft, and let me know what you guys thought of this mock draft while you are at it. As always, I thank you guys so much for watching and or listening, and remember, you saw it here on The Catch.